For years, Indian was the underdog, respected but never feared. At ends now, with impressive $13,000 Challenger built to crush the road glide, Indian just flipped the script. This is no longer Harley's world. This is Indian's revenge. And it's brutal. Can Harley get on price, on power, or on relevance? What's happening? It was the kind of myth that didn't just ripple through the motorcycle world, it detonated inside it. Indian Motorcycle hailed the new Challenger at a base price of just $13,000, and in an instant, everything changed. For decades, Harley Davidson's pricing strategy had been the immovable object, banking on brand loyalty justified bikes starting north of $25,000. Indian didn't just undercut that legacy. They flipped it upside down, dragged it into the street, and made every Harley buyer question their allegiance. At first, the reaction wasn't belief, it was disbelief. Riders assumed it had to be a typo, stripped-down version, a mistake on the website. Even dealers weren't sure what of it. Calls flooded infused loyalists, many of whom its last decade defending Harley's prices as the cost of quality. The forums lit up. YouTube exploded. One reaction summed it up perfectly. No way this is real. No way they're giving you all that. But it was real. And the timing couldn't have been worse for Harley Davidson, and had already been fighting its dominance in the fit of aging demographics, declining dealer traffic, and a younger generation increasingly resistant to paying top dollar for tradition. Indian's move wasn't just disruptive, it was calculated. They didn't release a smaller model, a beginner's or an electric experiment. They dropped a full-sized, fully-able touring monster directly into Harley's heartland, and they did it for nearly half the price. This wasn't a pricing strategy, it was a declaration of war. A $13,000 Challenger wasn't just a motorcycle, it was a statement. A bomb dropped in a cathedral of chrome, and suddenly every road glide on a showroom floor looked like a financial dake. Indian's pricing was more than aggressive, it was symbolic. A gesture that said, we know what this should cost, and we're done pretending. For Harley, the move was devastating not just because of the price, but because it forced a long overdue comparison. For the first time in years, riders weren't just if a Harley was cool, they were asking if it was worth it. This wasn't just about sticker shock, this was about trust. Riders who had walked into dealerships ready to spend $30,000 were now wondering why the hell they. Indian had introduced an impossible question into Harley's kingdom. What if the price of freedom was too damn high? But this wasn't just a price war, it was a power play. The end that shook Milwaukee. At the heart of Indian's offensive wasn't just a deal, it was an engine built to humiliate him. The Power Plus 112 engine packed into the new Challenger was nothing short of a technological declaration. This wasn't an evolution, it was an ambush. This liquid-cooled overhead cam 4-valve per cylinder V-twin produces 126 horsepower and 133 pound-feet torque, numbers that don't just edge out Harley's air-cooled Milwaukee 8-117. They obliterate it. In a world where Harley had long been king of displacement, Indian didn't just bring more power. They brought a smarter, smoother, and far more modern way to unleash it. Real-world test riders were first to feel it. One after another, comparisons rolled in and the verdict was swift. The Challenger doesn't just beat hard on the dyno, it beats it in the gut. The torque hits earlier, stays longer. The bike feels like it's thinking ahead rather than reacting behind you. One rider put it this way: the Harley roars, the Indian lunges, one howls, one hammered. This difference isn't just a performance spec, it's an emotional shift. The Challenger doesn't feel like a V-twin trying to keep up with the times. It feels like the next generation of American muscle. A rider in Arizona described the sensation. It's like going from a pickup truck to a Tesla. You realize the old way was fun, but the new way is better. Even the engineering philosophy is different. Harley's Milwaukee 8 still clings to heritage, hold to air-cooled traditions, and a pushrod layout designed more nostalgia than efficiency. Indian said Nanks, the Power Plus doesn't pretend to be retro, it exists in. It's not about top-end numbers, it's about the curve. An Indian's torquey curve is flat, fat, and fearless. There's no waiting, no build-up, no moment where you're left wondering when it begins. The fun is the curve. The Challenger pulls from the jump, doesn't let go. It's not where you measure, it's power you feel. And Harley, it still wants to talk about heritage, But torque doesn't care about memory, it cares about movement. But raw power wasn't the only thing Harley lost that day. Picking down the numbers, the tech, and rider feedback to show you how Indian flipped the mark. So if you're into deep, no-fluff analysis like this, subscribe button. It's A in the loop. Sport bike precision in a touring rig. The moment you throw a Challenger into a car, you realize something's different. It's not just about power anymore, it's about poise. And this is where Harley Davidson's Road Glide starts to feel like a relic, because Indian's Challenger doesn't just go fast in a straight line, it carves. The secret is Indian's cast aluminum monocoque frame, a platform borrowed from racing logic, not cruiser tradition. It's rigid, light, and surely precise, the kind of chassis that doesn't flex under weight or on sweepers. It feels planted, unshakable, stable in when fully loaded with a passenger and gear. One rider called it sport buttons and a long-distance body. Pair that with inverted front force and a Fox monotube rear shock, and the result is astounding. The front end stays glued under hard braking. The rear floats over rough pavement. Transitioning wing corners feels more like than steering. Harley's steel frame and conventional forks, by comparison, feel like relics. Heavy, soft, and vague. The difference just technical, it's psychological. Riders report leaning further, riding faster, and staying in the longer. Confidence is the secret ingredient Indian injected into this machine. Confidence changes everything. Harley's Road Glide may still win style fights at a parking lot meetup, but the moment the road twists, it's a Challenger that dominates. It responds like a scalpel, not sledgehammer. As one veteran rider put it, Harley feels like an armchair with muscle. Indian feels like a scalpel with saddlebags. And Indian didn't stop with the frame. They tuned the suspension for real-world riding, not brochure numbers. Vanish, turns tighten, and even at highway speeds the bike glides like a bullet on rails. The war didn't end at the ride. It straight to the sales floor. The Harley lost the shoe. It did not start with a bang. There was no dramatic collapse, no headlines announcing the death of a legacy. What happened to Harley Davidson across America was slower, quieter, but far more dangerous. It was the steady hum of riders walking in, looking around, and walking right back out. It was the polite conversations that ended with, "I'll think about it," and never a return call. And it was the steady rise of something no one in Milwaukee ever expected. Asking for Indian by names, managers first noticed the shift to tone. It used to be that someone walked through that door and said, "Show me a Harley," one dealership GM in Texas. Now they say, "What else do you have?" Those were harder than a bad sales quarter, because if Harley wasn't the automatic choice, if it was no longer the destination brand, was it? Indian's new Challenger, priced at just $13,000, did more than undercut his Road Glide. It redefined what a showroom visit meant. Riders who used to bring nostalgia and loyalty into the dealership brought spreadsheets and side-by-side comparison charts. They didn't want chrome. They wanted cruise control. They didn't want a name. They wanted a machine that could perform. And in test rides, the difference was, you could see it in their faces. Said a California-based sales rep. They'd ride the Challenger, come back, and the first thing they'd say was, "Why haven't I been on the tour?" Harley tried to keep up. They pushed promotions, incentives, heritage-themed paint jobs. But the truth, harder to cover than the showroom floor. Indian wasn't just cheaper, it was better. And worse, it was visible. Riders filmed their test rides. They posted a throttle response in ride modes. They shared screenshots of ride command versus Harley's boom system. Harley was losing the war not just on asphalt. Social media feeds and in comment sections filled with ex-loyalists. Sales floor, once a fortress of Harley's identity, now felt like a relic. A kingdom where fewer night morning. Staff morale faltered. Some began quietly considering jobs at Indian ships. Others simply waited, hoping the next product launch might turn the tide. It didn't, because the shift wasn't temporary, it was tectonic. The crown wasn't stolen, it was dropped. And riders just stopped picking it back up. But what was happening behind those doors was far more calling. The hidden cost of owning a Harley. There is a moment every Harley rider remembers. And for many, it's not the first bill. The moment when pride meets the service counter and the numbers start adding up. Looked like a $25,000 purchase becomes something else entirely. And for thousands of owners, that realization comes too late. The hidden cost of owning a Harley is not in the price tag. It's in everything that follow. It starts parts. OEM components often cost twice as much as comparable parts from Indian Slayer network. The costs at Harley dealerships are notoriously, and service intervals come faster than riders expect. Air-cooled engines, while iconic, request than liquid-cooled designs. And when you start adding in overheating risks, valve adjustments, and out-of-warrant repairs, the honeymoon ends quickly. But the biggest trap is the upgrade cycle. Harley's touring lineup is famous for needing just a few additions. Riders walk out with a stock road glide and within weeks are order rated seats, new suspension, louder audio, better lighting, heated grips, and navigation systems that have come standard. A typical road glide owner adds between $3,000 and $5,000 in mod first year, and often those additions are not optional. They're necessary just to keep up with Indian's base Challenger. It's where the betrayal sets in. Riders don't mind investing in their bikes, but they do mind being sold an incomplete machine. "I felt like I bought a shell," said one former Harley owner, who switched to Indian in 2020. "I spent thousands getting it where I wanted, then I rode a Challenger and realized I could have had it all day one for less." It's not just about money, it's about trust. It's about time. More time in the shop, more downtime waiting on back-ordered parts, more weekends missed because of maintenance windows that come too often. And as Indian riders post about riding more and spending less, the contrast becomes hard to ignore. Challenger's Power Plus engine is not just powerful, it's efficient. Riders report fewer heat issue, fewer maintenance needs, and fuel surprises. Features that cost extra on Harley, like electronically linked braking or performance-tuned suspension, come standard on Indian. That's not just value. That's a philosophy. He doesn't build motorcycles for what they used to be. They build them for what riders expect now. And yet the real din under the hood, it was in the mirror, the cool shift no one saw me. For over a century, Harley Davidson was more than a motorcycle brand. It was a soul. A banner waved by rebels, outlaws, and blue-collar warriors believed in the road and in themselves. But somewhere along the way, that identity blurred. And when Indian stepped in, it did not just offer a better machine, it offered a new mirror, one that showed riders who they were becoming, not who they used to be. Indian positioned itself differently. Its message wasn't about legacy, it was about leadership. Ride modes, smart tests, sleek design, aggressive engine. They weren't selling rebellion, they were selling precision. And younger riders responded. Harley Bilbith. One rider posted online, "Indian to machine." Harley's branding still leaned on nostalgia. Vintage cutters, old war slogans, sweats that hadn't changed since the 90s. But Indian leaned into adaptation. They didn't try to win a sure war. They created a new one. A culture that didn't need validation from old myths. It needed results. Riding a challenge didn't mean you were turning your back on tradition. It meant you were done what were to catch up. Meanwhile, Indian wasn't waiting. They were scaling up for something bigger. Built to Indian's manufacturing edge. It was never just about building bike, it was about building better systems. In that arena, Indian has already won. While Harley Davidson spent the past decade flirting with overseas production, off-low costs and cutting corners, Indian, powered by its parent company Purus, did the opposite. It dumped American soil. It built where Harley retreated. Polaris made a decision most Lebanese were too afraid to make. It reinvested in domestic manufacturing. It fortified its supply chains, streamlined its logistics, and vertically integrated key components to eliminate dependency on third-party bottlenecks. The result? Indian built bikes faster with fewer delays and at a lower cost, without compromise quality or origin. While Harley was struggling with product delays tied to foreign factories and global disruptions, Indian was ramping up output on home turf. That difference became crystal clear during the post-pandemic inventory crunch. Harley dealerships stood half empty, their showrooms echoing with promised wait lists. Meanwhile, Indian dealers had inventory arriving on schedule. Riders could walk in, pick their trim, and ride out that same day. And that experience, the ability to deliver, not just display, changed everything. It wasn't just a manufacturing advantage, it became a competitive weapon. The design to production pipeline worked differently. Polaris implemented flexible production systems that allowed Indian to pivot quickly, responding to trends, customizing orders, and deploying updates with remarkable speed. Harley's older siloed systems couldn't compete. It took longer to build, longer to deliver, and longer to upgrade. In a market where time equals relevance, Indian wasn't just keeping pace, it was meheh. And it did all this while staying deeply American. Assembly lines in Spear Lake, Iowa were not symbolic gestures. They're of strategic control. Designed for resilience, tuned for speed, it sent a message to riders. We're building where you ride. That message hit especially hard in beasts that had watched Harley shutter plants or outsource operations in recent years. For many longtime riders, that distinction mattered, not where a bike was assembled, but why. Indian was sending a signal of long-term commitment, not short-term profit. It wasn't chasing cheap labor, it was chasing sustainable dominance. But speed wasn't the only edge. Indian had something else: future readiness. Ride command versus boom. Who really owns the road? For decades, motorcycles were defined by what you felt in your hands and under your seat. But today, what you see on the screen matters just as much. And in that new reality, Indian's ride command system is rewriting the rules of rider experience. While Harley's boombox struggles to catch up, Ride Command isn't just a display, it's a full digital ecosystem. Navigation, weather diagnostics, audio tuning, Bluetooth integration, tire pressure monitoring, and ride stats, all delivered through a sleek, responsive interface. And the best part, it gets better with time. Over-the-air updates allow Indian to patch bugs, improve features, and add new functionality without sending the bike back to a dealer. Compare that to Harley's system. Boombox feels clunky, dated, and frustrating. Updates require flash drives, menus lag. Riders report frequent connectivity issues and a confusing user experience. It's like pairing a rotary phone with a spaceship. And in a world where everything from your toaster to your truck updates in real time, that kind of friction feels unacceptable. Younger riders, those who grew up with smartphones, apps, and real-time data, notice the difference immediately. And increasingly, they don't tolerate it. For them, Ride Command isn't a luxury. It's a baseline expectation. Indian isn't just meeting that bar, it's raising it. But this chapter isn't just about tech specs, it's about identity. When riders choose Indian over Harley because of the dashboard, not the engine, that's a generational shift. It means the motorcycle brand of the future isn't the one that thumps the loudest, it's the one that responds the fastest. Data is becoming as important as displacement. Experience is now defined by user interface. And Indian's advantage wasn't just in features, they were setting off a global fuse. The global bagger war has begun. For decades, Harley Davidson believed it owned the blueprint for the American cruiser, by extension, the global bagger. But in 2025, that illusion shattered. What began a pricing war in the US quickly evolved into a full-scale global insurgency, with Indian Motorcycle leading the charge and the national brands closing in from every direction. The bagger war is no longer about chrome and thunder. It is about adaptability and global appeal. And Harley is no longer setting the rules. Across the Pacific, Japanese manufacturers have begun their quiet conquest. This bagger lineup, especially the Goldwing's modern derivatives, have become a favorite among performance touring riders who want precision without the price tag. Honda's reputation for reliability, coupled with cutting-edge infotainment, electronically adjustable suspension, and whisper-quiet engine tuning, has pulled away a significant share of the upper touring market. Europe, BMW's R18 has found a unique niche. It offers German refinement wrapped in cruiser aesthetics, carving a space for riders who distance comfort without compromising on engineering quality. These are not splayers anymore. They are direct threads. But perhaps the boldest shift has come from India. Royal Enfield, once dismissed as niche or underpowered, has launched a new Super Meteor and two-cylinder 650 platform across the globe. These machines are lighter, easier to handle, and dramatically more affordable than Harley's entry-level cruisers. In markets like South Asia, Latin America, and Africa, Harley's baggers are already out of reach due to price. Indian's strategic international pricing has only intensified that gap, giving global riders a legitimate alternative that feels aspirational without being financially ruinous. And that's the truth for Harley Davidson. American buffs are not just being challenged in America, they are being replaced overseas. Indian has quietly expanded into the UK, Australia and Africa with aggressive dealership support and strategic pricing that undercuts Harley by thousands of dollars. Even before customization, the Challenger's $13,000 base price is not just a domestic weapon. International markets, that number often translates to total domination. This global war is not being fought with billboards and badges. It is being fought with spreadsheets, spec sheets, and software. Where Harley once held dominance through sheer muscle, Indian and its global allies are winning with precision, pricing, and progress. America may have invented the cruiser, but now it is fighting to keep it. And while Harley looked backward, Indian asked a dangerous question: what's next? Because while Harley held tight to history, Indian ran straight into tomorrow. Indian's in-game volume value victory. At first glance, the Challenger looks like just an Avagar with a bold fairing and a powerful engine, but that is a misread. This cycle is not just a product, it is a blueprint, a strategic strike designed to reposition Indian motorcycle as the dominant force in American motorcycling. What Indian has built is not just a better machine, it is a smarter business model, one that Harley Davidson cannot keep up with. It begins with scale. Indian company Polaris has invested in domestic manufacturing while maintaining the agility to think globally. Their supply chain, engineering infrastructure, and modular design systems allow them to build more, buy faster, and with fewer errors. The factoring edge translates into something Harley struggles to deliver: consistent value. While Harley struggles with partages, inflated dealer markups, and inventory delays, Indian is quietly stocking showrooms with models riders can test and take home the same week. But the real genius is in Indian conditioning. By pricing the Challenger at $13,000, Indian did more than undercut Harley's Road Glide. They undercut the entire markets of what a bagger should cost. They made affordability feel premium. That pricing does not dilute the brand, it expands it. Riders who once settled for mid-range or even foreign sport tourers are now considering American muscle again, because now it comes with tech, support, and performance baked in. Indian is also attacking the demographic that Harley lost: young, value-focused, savvy riders who want connection and control, not just tradition. The Challenger's digital integrations, modern ergonomics, and aggressive styling are not afterthoughts. They are baked, and it is working. Dealerships report waitlists. YouTube influencers are choosing Indian over Harley in sponsored content. Social media is now split, and in many cases, leaning Indian. And here is the lull. Indian is not trying to steal Harley's current market, they are trying to own the next one. With multiple platforms, over-the-air updates, and rider-focused design decisions, Indian is future-proofing its lineup: emissions regulations, international compliance, and software-based updates. Harley is still selling bikes. Indian is selling wisdom. This wasn't a bike, it was a strategy dressed in chrome. And with one final move, Indian made sure the no turning back. The new definition of American greatness. For over 100 years, Harley Davidson defined what meant to ride American. Built a mythology from steel, old and noise. It told stories through chrome tanks and baritone exhausts. 2025, that story is being rewritten, and Indian Motorcycle is holding the pen. This is not just a product war, it is a cultural reckoning. Because Indian has not just built a better back, it has built a new identity for the American rider. One that is defined not by memory, but by momentum. Not by heritage, but by hunger. While Harley leaned into the past, Indian leaned to the rider. Today, the Challenger stands as a symbol of modern ingenuity. Liquid-cooled, digitally connected, and ferociously priced, it represents a shift from image to implementation. It tells riders, you no left to choose between performance and patriotism. You can have both, and you do not have to pay $30,000 to get there. In many ways, this is about more than motorcycles. It is about who gets to define American greatness in the 21st century. Is it the company clinging to its origin story, or the one forging anew through engineering and audacity? For Indian, the answer is clear, and for a growing number of riders, that answer is convincing. Harley will always be remembered, but Indian is now being chosen. In forums, in dealers, and on the open road, the brand that once plagued and fiddle has taken center stage, and in doing so, it has redefined what to ride free. The king is dead. Long live the road. If you have thoughts on the Challenger versus the Road Glide, drop them in the comments. We will hear from real riders. And if you're into deep motorcycle breaks like this, hit subscribe so you don't miss what's coming next.